guys, welcome back to another The Unofficial A&R video, and today I would like to talk about Jack Harlow once again and his latest release with Jackman, the third studio album released by this channel's favorite person, Mr. Harlow, consisting of 10 tracks with a solid 0 features. This album almost serves as a quote-unquote comeback album for Jack Harlow following the frat rap atrocity that was his previous album, Come Home, the Kids Miss You. Despite being certified gold, Come Home, the Kids Miss You seemed to artistically fall into the trap of the sophomore slump following his very successful debut album, That's What They All Say, which came as quite a shock to me, as I feel like Jack Harlow had way more anticipation surrounding his second album, especially after the TikTok success of First Class, which landed him his first solo #1 on Billboard. I think a lot of people anticipated his second album to live up to the hype and to give people something to sink their teeth into properly with regards to trying to understand who Jack Harlow is. Even though Jack has tons of mixtapes, albums are still considered the commercial frontrunner for musicians, and so it would have been nice for Come Home, the Kids Miss You to have some elements of pre-2020 Jack Harlow. Unfortunately, the album had none of that and was considered one of Jack's worst projects to date. Criticized for being uncharismatic, unimpressive, and filler, I personally agree with this. I found the album very corny, with even cornier inflections, cheesy lyrics. You know I like to dictate things, Kim Jong. You know that bread keep coming, Golden Corral, bitch. And his production was just very drab despite the odd upbeat cut. But is Jackman a step up from Come Home, the Kids Miss You? And is Jack improving? Jack Harlow, when he was on the come up, was somewhat a different artist to how he is now. When he was coming up, he knew that he was a bit of an oddball. He was very unapologetic then, so much so that you could only respect the fact that he was determined to break the mold despite being a very unassuming rapper. Jackman, however, feels very apologetic to me, which is what I suppose Jack is kind of going for in this album, if you can see from his bare-chested album cover art. Almost like a statement to show that this album is stripped back in comparison to his previous doings. Jackman is filled with lo-fi and old school Kanye and Just Blaze inspired production. There's no real big bass boosting club bangers on this project like there were on Come Home, the Kids Miss You. This album seems to focus more on topics which have been irking Jack's soul, particularly the fact that the internet chastised him for his previous album, and this album seems to be his way of showing us that he is a serious rap contender who is aware of other things rather than how many girls would like to bed him. For instance, on the relatively predictable album intro, Common Ground, Jack attempts to show some sort of societal awareness to the fact that privately educated suburban kids like listening to predominantly African American music and using their vernacular, trying to imitate their behavior of black people, but not having any sort of real connection to the experiences of black people, yet watching their every move from the comfort of their room in their very lovely big house and presumably a very affluent area. Basically reaping the benefits of white privilege. It's an okay start, nothing mind-boggling out there, it's just okay. They Don't Love It, which is very much inspired by old school Kanye and Just Blaze production, much like many of these songs on Jackman, such as Ambitious. It's very hard to hate, the production is very good, it's hard to go wrong with this considering how often this type of production has been done. We've seen it quite a few times before, but it's obvious that it's the most commercially viable song on the album. Jack very confidently raps that he's the hardest white boy since the one who rapped about vomit and sweaters. Slightly clunky line, but we do get the gist. And undeniably, it's up to the people to decide whether or not they disagree or agree with this. Ambitious follows on from They Don't Love It, but it's slower in pace. I actually really like Ambitious because it's very well structured. Probably the best structured song he has here. He's got his first verse where he talks about his musical ambitions at 14, despite not doing very well in school, the normal childish life that he used to live, even though it features a few har bars, as I would like to call it. Har bars being very cliche Jack Harlow lyrics, such as coming in my girl like I'm sterile, and did a couple local shows, okay, my following exists, even if it's 15 high school chicks. better than a front row of dicks. But then it progresses into the next verse where he gets more serious and talks about his growing popularity in music at the age of 19, wondering if he only got signed because he was white, and still struggling to win over some people when performing, and being an opener at a festival rather than a headliner. Still playing 1 p.m. sets at the festivals, looking at the crowd, they embarrassed for me. And then finally verse 3, where Jack is now 24 and has developed a name for himself in the industry and is rubbing shoulders with his heroes, but still facing criticism from people who are not certain about his come up. This song follows a very similar structure to songs like Denver and Blame on Me, almost like before and after. Blame on Me has a structure of Jack rapping from his brother's point of view, then his own, and then lastly his father's point of view. And I seriously think that this type of structure suits Jack the best. It's almost like Jack is able to rap about his chosen topic much easier and much clearer when he follows a simple structure. I like Jack's songs when he's being simple but effective, not all over the place and rapping about nothing. He's good at the casual storytelling in my opinion, and is able to be very emotionally honest when explaining his confidence and struggles with insecurity. You understand him most when he raps like this. But then we have songs like No Enhancers, which is too simple. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice R&B influenced number, probably one of Jack's best when it comes to crooning. It does kind of veer into the I just listened to Drake's Best I Ever Had a million times before I made this song territory. No Enhancers is probably up there with They Don't Love It when it comes to the catchiness of the chorus, but besides the production and chorus, Jack basically has one verse on this song, and he's not really saying much. Bit of a waste of potential here, methinks. We also have It Can't Be, where Jack basically denies the fact that he's white as being the reason for his comeuppance, listing all the reasons why he's finally come up, such as his influences and the fact that he's been raised right by his family, which I understand completely. But the problem with this is that Jack is at best a decent rapper. And like many artists who are at best decent or okay, but still manage to receive a large amount of public recognition, they have a selling point. Whether that's their sex appeal, their personality, the fact that they can sell something very well, whatever it is. In this case, one could argue that Jack's selling point is indeed the fact that he's white. I'm not gonna lie, I'm just not gonna do it. Nobody is putting Jack Harlow in their top 5, 10, or even 50 rappers of all time. In fact, Jack Harlow is a rookie in this game with a lot more to learn and a lot more to see. So this song just sounds like Jack in denial. It probably should have been left off of the album because it just sounds like the rich kid trying to unconvincingly convince everyone that the reason why they got the job at their father's company is because of their sheer skill, when actually it's because of nepotism. And the last song that I will touch on in this video is Gang Gang Gang, the most controversial song on this project. It depicts storytelling about childhood friends who grew up to do terrible things such as SA and having to hold them accountable for said actions. Although it's not quite clear as to whether or not Jack is happy about this on this song. A lot of people didn't really like the way that Jack handled this topic. They felt like the execution was lacking and the point was lost. And I think I do agree with them. Even though I appreciate that Jack tackled this topic, I feel like it could have been executed slightly better. I feel like Jack was incredibly tame in his conclusion, where he basically infers that he has to disassociate from friends like that despite being in disbelief at their actions. It was quite an underwhelming conclusion to discussing a topic that is so serious. It would have been better if Jack detailed his friendship with one person and built it up to the point where his friend's SA allegations come to light, and how angry Jack is as a result of finding this out, how he sympathizes with the victims and no longer associates with that person, instead of basically just being in disbelief for 2/3 of the song and regretfully having to disassociate from somebody that he once called his brother. I think that's the thing about this song. Instead of Jack tackling the seriousness of the offense and how unacceptable it is, he more so comes across as reluctant. And if this was the angle that he was going to take, I would have preferred for someone in his camp to tell him to go back to the drawing board with this song. Because despite the idea being a very good one, it is very important that the point of the song isn't lost, which it is. Gang 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 shows me that Jack has concepts and he wants to tackle different things, but he doesn't quite have the cojones to tackle the subject for what it is, which is fuckery. Good subject matter, subpar execution. In conclusion, I personally think that Jack Harlow has only slightly improved with Jackman. On this project, he's more introspective, there's a lot more thought that's gone into it, and the production is much better than his previous albums, although it's not necessarily anything innovative. The problem that I have with Jackman, however, is that despite it being a step up from Jack's previous album, with better storytelling and it's evidently more serious, there's no real standout tracks. You could argue that Gang 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 is a standout because of its very obvious subject matter. However, it's hard to understand what the outcome of the song is supposed to be. Denver seems to be the best song on the album. I would add Blame on Me and Ambitious to that list as well, but only in the sense that they display Jack's vulnerability. They're not standout in a "oh my god, that song was unforgettable" manner. Jackman is Jack's attempt to be vulnerable and to connect with a different audience. However, I think it's very evident that Jack Harlow doesn't seem to have a variety of life experience to make listeners connect with him. It feels very much like Jack is just your typical suburban kid who likes to rap and potentially struggles with insecurity in terms of getting people to take him seriously. And that's kinda it. Jackman is sonically better than some of his previous projects, and I do appreciate the change of direction. However, I just fear that Jack might not have much else to give his audience to hook onto, which might put him in a strange position musically. I just feel like it's very important, especially in this day and age, to be an interesting artist. And Jack just doesn't really give off that impression, but we shall see what the future has in store for him. Thank you guys for listening to my jabber about whether or not I think Jack Harlow has improved from Come Home the Kids Miss You with his latest album, Jackman. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Share your thoughts in the comments on this video. Did you like the album? Did you hate the album? Do you think my opinion is absolute crap? Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you guys in the next video.